Hello, Abnormal Investigations. Got another drop for you today, another encounter. Again, I want to apologize for missing the boots on the ground for the brightest moon of the year. I'm bummed about it also, but it was events that I had no control over, so therefore we had to miss it. It sucks. I know a lot of y'all were wanting to see that, but some things happen that are out of our control. So I wanted to apologize to y'all again for not being able to do that. Um, this encounter today is going to be a little bit different, I think, also than most of them that we get. So let's go ahead and get into it. When I was 16, my dad and mom and I lived in the country. We had an old chicken house. This thing was old, and we kept all the hens in there to lay the eggs for eating. One night I was out in the chicken house collecting eggs from the nesting boxes. It was dark outside, and the only light came from the moon shining through the windows. I was reaching into a box to grab an egg when I heard a strange noise. At first I thought it was just one of the hens moving around, but then I heard it again, a low growling sound. I turned around, but I didn't see anything. The hens were all quiet, like they were watching something too. I felt a sense in the air of something was watching me, a heaviness that I couldn't explain. I felt that I wasn't alone in the chicken house. Slowly, I backed away from the nesting box and made my way to the door. That's when I saw it, a pair of eyes staring back at me from the shadows. This thing was under the chicken house. I could see the eyes between the tracks in the floor. And then it growled really loud, and I ran to the house. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me, leaning against it to catch my breath. My heart was about to fall out of my chest. And that's whenever I started telling myself it had to be just a raccoon or a stray dog. But deep down I knew it was probably a monster that I had always feared all my life. For some reason, I just kept having that feeling of just afraid and heaviness in my chest. I turned to my parents, who were sitting in the living room, and tried to explain what I had just seen. But the words, they couldn't explain how I felt or what I had seen. I couldn't bring myself to describe those eyes and the growl. My dad looked at me with concern and asked if I was okay. I nodded, still trying to process what had just happened. But I knew I wouldn't be able to shake off this feeling of this thing. I know it had to have been watching me the whole time. I had to be stopped. Something that lurked in the darkness beneath my feet watching me in this old chicken house. My dad was a heavy drinker, and he yelled at me to go get the rest of the eggs. I told him I couldn't, and that night he beat me, just like he has many other times. He didn't take no for an answer from any of us. I reluctantly went back to the chicken house, crying with fear and pain and my body aching from the beating. I didn't want to go back to that place, but I knew I had no choice. As I approached the chicken house, I could feel eyes upon me again. I tried to hurry and collect the eggs, but my hands were shaking and I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see something emerging from the shadows that would just absolutely scare me to death. When I finally got back to the house, my dad was waiting for me, his anger still simmering. He took the eggs from me and started yelling again, saying I was useless, and I couldn't even do a simple task. My mom tried to intervene, but he just pushed her away also. I went to my room feeling defeated and scared. I knew I had to get out of there, but I didn't know what was coming, what was waiting for me outside. And when I went to bed that night, I heard it, scratching sound coming from outside my window. And there was a low, deliberate scratch, like something was trying to get my attention. I was afraid to look. I just covered my head with my covers and started to pray. The next day I knew my dad would make me go back out there and get the eggs. So I gathered them early in the light. I was laying in my bed at around 11 at night when my dad yelled for me. He has been drinking again. The dog was barking and the chickens were having a fit. He told me to go check on the chickens. I was so afraid, and I knew better than to tell my dad no again. So I went as soon as I got in there. I heard the growling and the chickens started to shake and have fits. I ran back to the house and told Dad that it was a bobcat. He said okay and grabbed his machete. He went to the chicken house. He was gone a long time. So my mother went to check on him. And that's whenever I heard her scream like I've never heard her scream before. I rushed to the door and I saw my mom running back toward the house from the chicken house, her face white with terror. She was screaming for me to call for help, to get out of there as fast as I could. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it had to be bad. I turned to run, but then I saw my dad stumbling toward us, his machete covered in blood. He was muttering to himself. His eyes were wild looking, and he looked so unfocused and so confused. And then I saw it. I saw the creature run from behind the chicken house. It was a twisted, deformed looking run. And it disappeared into the darkness and into the woods behind our chicken house. My mom grabbed me and we ran, not stopping until we were far away from the house. We didn't dare look back. The creature ran into the darkness. The police had arrived. The police told my mom they found my dad in the house with his stomach cut wide open. He had died. They said they believed he was drunk and fell on the machete, but I believe the Dogman did it to him. I believe the Dogman gutted my dad. They said his intestines were outside of his body. The creature has not returned, and everything has stayed quiet to this day. It has never returned. I don't know what to think. I need help. Years have passed since that fateful day, but the memory of that creature still lingers in my mind. Sometimes I wonder if I really saw what I think I saw, or if it was just a product of an imagination in a kid and somebody may have murdered my dad. But the feeling of terror I felt that night is something I can't forget. I know what I seen, but somehow, and some reason, our minds try to tell us that it was something different. I've tried to research more about the Dogman, but I haven't found much information other than what you find online and other chats. Some say it's a supernatural being, a malevolent spirit that lurks in the darkness. Others believe it's simply an unknown animal, a canine that has evolved into a strange way. I don't know what to believe, but what I do know is that my life changed forever that night. I lost my father in a horrific accident, and I've been living with fear and uncertainty ever since. Yes, my dad done things to me that were unacceptable and should have never happened. But deep down, every child loves their dad, and none of them want to see their dad gutted right in front of them. My mom, she became very quiet after that. She became almost reclusive. I think she blames herself to a point. But I think that my mom also has to have a sense of relief. This was the most horrific thing that I've ever seen in my life. The way the creature ran was uncanny. It ran like it didn't belong on its hind feet. A lot of people say that they look like they do. But this creature, he looked to have a hard time running on his hind feet. It didn't look natural. It looked almost deformed, unnatural. I will never forget the way that this creature ran. Did this creature come and think that it delivered me from the abuse that me and my mom were getting? Was it somehow something that came to save us? I don't know. I need help on this one, guys. Wow. I think we can look at this one a lot of different ways. There's a lot of possibilities. Your dad could have went out there with a weapon, which would have, made the creature feel like that it was being threatened, and it may have acted out of what the creature thought was self-defense. The creature could have done that to your dad because he was an evil person, and that allowed it to be able to do that because of the kind of person your dad was. Maybe there's a line they can cross on certain people. I would like to know that if your dad was saved, if he was an evil man, that might have been how it was able to cross that line and to be able to do that. Either way, I'm sorry that happened to you. Nobody wants to see that. especially to a parent. It's pretty interesting to me how you say that it didn't look like it belonged on its hind feet, because a lot of people say that they do belong on their hind feet. So that's pretty interesting how you say that it looked like it had trouble on its hind feet. Maybe it was an older one, or maybe it was injured. Maybe your dad had got lucky and got a whack on it. I'm not sure. A lot of things come to my mind when I think about that. But thank you for sending your encounter in, and if you'll check the messages on this video, you'll see that a lot of our people will probably also give you advice. They give good advice. We have the best subscribers on YouTube. Thank you everybody for your support, for smashing that like button on this video. It is helping so much. So if you don't mind, smash that like button. And guys, we will see you on the next one. And don't forget, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner, because you just might be the one being hunted in the woods.